Finding talent for any business is a huge challenge, and especially development challenge. Our next speaker runs a company called Andela that helps companies find overseas development talent and ensure that they're ready and created in a place that the teams can take advantage of their talents right away. So please welcome to the stage Christina Sass, co-founder and president of Andela.
Good afternoon. I understand that I'm the next to last thing that's keeping you from cocktails. So I am not going to ramble on for too long, but this is a topic that we at Andela are super passionate about, and so I'm really excited to be here and talk to you about how to scale up your software developer teams. So raise your hand if you are currently looking for and hiring software developers, or if your company has open roles for software developers. Yes, these very strange, mythical creatures, these software developers. Here's one of the many myths about them. Full stack developer, no other developers required. There are, as you know, many myths about software developers themselves and their moods and tendencies, but also about building software developer teams. And so here's a few of the myths that I want to talk to you about today. I'll be able to scale up my team with only senior developers. I only ever want senior developers. As big as my team grows, we're going to get only all the best senior ones. And I'll be able to hire them all locally. I'll be able to hire diverse teams locally. And I'll most definitely be able to retain all that diverse local talent. So somehow you or your VP of engineering is going to find like the Nigerian-Canadian meetup of senior developers that you've never heard of before. And they're all going to love your company and product, and they're going to love your salary levels. They're going to invite all of their friends to come, and they're going to stay at your company forever and attract more talent. That is highly unlikely to happen. And here are some of the many reasons why, or the realities around software developers. There's a massive shortage of qualified software developers. So in 2016, we know that 1.4 million jobs just went entirely unfilled. That's a huge revenue loss, and as you all know, productivity. When you cannot find the tech talent you need to grow your product and your company, it slows everything down. And so there's about 5 open jobs for every 1 software developer in the United States alone. So it's an under 1% unemployment. So for senior developers, there's really virtually, there's no unemployment if they want to be in a job. And this problem is only going to grow. So in 2020, there will be an additional 1 million jobs open for software developer. So literally, if you took all of the computer science and engineering degree graduates between now and 2020 and add to that boot camps, people that do kind of a transitional boot camp, you will still not even approach filling all of these jobs for software developers. So there's not nearly enough of them, and they're really hard to qualify and hire. So here are some of the major challenges that hiring managers cite as their biggest barriers. It's really hard to assess skills well. All of you know the cost of making a bad hire, how long it takes to figure that out and move through it. It's hard to assess. There's a bunch of different ways. People have a lot of different philosophies on it, and it takes a ton of time, a ton of your team's time. So 65 hours to recruit, assess, and interview developers. I'm sure you could be doing a lot of other things with those 65 hours. So they're hard to find, they're hard to assess, there aren't enough of them, and software developers are already working in a highly distributed fashion. So we've seen a 300% increase in the last 5-ish years, and now about 37% of top software developers are working in a distributed fashion. It is the way that they would prefer to work, and it is certainly moving in that direction. So there is some good news. There are all sorts of tools out there that you are familiar with and have heard. These are some of the hottest, coolest companies. I don't know about you, but our software developers are obsessed with Slack. We actually have a fascinating video where one of my co-founders took the rap song Black and Yellow and redid it to Slack and Trello. I looked that one up. It's a real hit with the Andela team. But anyway, we have eliminated a lot of the barriers to remote working. So here's another myth that I didn't put up there. But another myth is that you can just work in the way that you've always worked in your office, but do it from home or do it from the beach and get a really nice camera, and that will be great distributed work. That is false. Distributed work, to do it well, it is an entire different skill set. So with our developers, we train them in every single minute detail about being a great distributed team member. Are you backlit? Do you know how to look into the camera? Who is going to be on that stand-up? Are you introducing yourself or not? Do you know how those people relate to each other? Have you turned off everything else so that you can focus on nothing but that distributed call? This is a whole different way of working, and it is a very intentional way of working. And if you and your company really go through the push-ups to be a great distributed team, it certainly pays off in many ways. So Google says co-location has no impact on team effectiveness if you really do it right. And there's a lot of reasons why you should want to do it right if you are deeply invested in scaling a large team of software developers. Most notably because diverse teams outperform other teams. It is highly unlikely that you're going to find the best diverse talent locally. And so in order to be able to really fully engage them, you're going to have to work in a distributed fashion. Now, we're at an interesting time in the tech sector for diversity. There are many, many top leaders. We have all agreed that we've seen the same statistics and research that diverse teams outperform. Diverse teams are more innovative. They build better products. They build them faster. And we've put out some pretty lofty goals for that diversity hiring. Once again, this math does just not add up. We're not going to be able to increase the number of diverse candidates that we want to hire and have them come out of the woodwork in the US and in North America. We have to find different ways to operate to really get at this challenge of technology and diversity. And why is that? Another fairly obvious reason that I feel warrants restating is that global products have to be built by global teams. There is no better way to ensure that only white dudes between 22 and 35 use your product than to have only white dudes between 22 and 35 build your products. You are never going to be able to scale your products globally unless you engage globally diverse minds. And that is somewhat obvious, and yet we still have not embraced what it means to really bring the diversity that you need to scale your team and scale your product in a way that is, in fact, global. So just to hammer this home, we're all kind of clamoring over each other for the best senior talent. We all want and desire more diverse talent, and yet we're missing the large majority of great diverse talent in the world. 21 million software developers in the world, 3 million in the US, probably 4.4 million in North America. And we really see, so my company Andela specializes in African software development. And we do that because we think it's one of the largest pools of untapped talent in the world. And this is a real barrier to people believing that this great talent exists. So to give you one example, the Maasai tribe, if you can picture them, they're tall, beautiful, stacked necklaces, and often dressed in red plaid. You see these dramatic pictures of them against the landscape. The Maasai tribe is one of the oldest tribes on the planet, and they have been transferring money on their mobile phones since 2007. When did you transfer money on your mobile phone for the first time? So I'm embarrassed to say, but it was probably 2012 for me. So we have an enormous amount to learn from the tech sectors around the world, and in particular Nairobi, which is the birthplace of mobile money. So one of our extraordinary developers, this young woman is named Yeti Sani. She is a Ruby on Rails expert, and she's started a kind of movement and website called Tech in Pink to incentivize other young women to join the tech field. She works remotely from Lagos, Nigeria, for an LA-based startup called OpenFan. She's also incredibly passionate about AI. She's trying to bring AI to the Lagos tech sector. And I point this out because I do not know a VP of engineering who would not be absolutely delighted to have Yeti on his team. She's a self-learner, she's entirely self-motivated, and he's not going to find her in Los Angeles. But by working in a distributed fashion, distributed teams can actually really get the best talent. So in summary, here are some truths. You want to grow and scale a thriving tech team and a thriving company, you've got to grow senior talent. You are not going to turn around and find larger and larger pools of only the perfect senior talent in your tech stack. You got to grow it and be invested in growing it for the long term. And teams that actually scale, they find the best developers wherever they are. They do those push-ups to work in a really distributed fashion with discipline. And it is highly likely that the best diverse talent is not at all local, and that's a great thing. That is a great thing. You need and want these diverse skill sets on your team. It will make you stronger and better. And it is it's definitely well known that it's diverse teams that really attract and retain other diverse talent, that becomes a magnet for other diversity. So this is one of our developers. He's sitting on the roof of our office in Uganda. I love this picture. This person is hard at work, and most people that I talk to have never thought of Kampala or Uganda as a great place for tech talent, but they have tons of feeder systems in computer science and engineering. So we get the pleasure and the honor of working with extraordinary, somewhat unlikely to the rest of the world, tech talent. We have 800 software developers. We've had over 90,000 applications for those 800 software developers. This is talent not just in Africa. There are plenty of other people that are accessing this talent in other parts of the world to help you vet and access it, to remove those barriers from your tech team to grow. So we've got 800 developers. They're working for 150 different partners of every shape and size in 55 cities across the world. And we're able to do that. We'd love to be able to share any of our wisdom about distributed teams. If you're passionate and interested about this, we'd love to hear from you, but it will absolutely pay off to scale your team in a distributed way. Thank you very much.
I need some traction. You need some traction. Let's get some traction.